and welcome to my astrology forecast for the week of November 22nd through the 28th, 2021. I'm Poetic Heretic, and in this video I will be sharing with you a day-by-day look at the week ahead using the astrological system I have come to use in my own personal life. We will be looking at the mundane astrology applying to everyone of all signs. All times in this video are Eastern Standard Time. Adjust your time zone accordingly. The week begins on Monday, November 22nd, with the moon transiting security-conscious Cancer and forming a square to Chiron and an opposition to Venus, even though the latter does not perfect until the next day. This is a mildly emotional configuration that stresses things like healing in relationships, especially after and or during a somewhat tense time. We may be denied something we want or have to go through difficulty to get something we want, yet the rewards will likely be sweet and delicious. A late-night sextile from the moon to Uranus adds some excitement and unpredictability to the air, but for the most part this is a more internal, emotional, maybe even somewhat moody or melancholy day. Just remember that moody does not have to be a bad thing if through your focus your mood is good. On Tuesday, November 23rd, the life-giving sun conjoins the South Node in Sagittarius. The nodal axis is always connected to matters of fate and the unseen. The South Node in particular often indicates loss or release. This strongly implies that on this day we may feel or experience something strange or fated involving our ego, conscious mind, or sense of self as we move through life that involves some kind of release or letting go. Even the disappearance altogether of our ego or sense of self is a plausible manifestation on this day. Meanwhile, the moon continues her journey through Cancer and forms a grand water trine with Mars and Neptune that is also a formation called a kite with Venus at the opposite end. Even though Venus is still too far out of orb for the sextile between it and Neptune to currently show on screen, if it did, you would notice that the aspect pattern forms the shape of a literal kite, hence the name. The grand water trine between the moon, Mars, and Neptune is like a superconductive circuit where emotional energy just flows. It is a means through which things work, but outside of which might not work. The Mars-Neptune side of it tells us that it is strongly connected to attitudes of acting on faith, or inspired action, or fighting for what we believe in. Having Venus at the opposite end of the kite formation implies that our end goal in this is likely connected to relationships, pleasure, or indulgence. As the moon moves further into that opposition with Venus, she also moves deeper into the trine with Mars and then Neptune, suggesting breakthroughs and desire through action, or some kind of action that provides an outlet for the tense energy in our struggle to get what we desire. It's almost as if the cosmos are saying that first there will be stress, then there will be inspired action to resolve the stress. While all of this is happening, an ominous Moon-Pluto opposition builds that doesn't technically perfect until just after midnight, and which we will talk more about in a moment. On Wednesday, November 24th, mental Mercury joins the Sun when it enters enthusiastic Sagittarius, focusing our minds on the horizon, the big picture, and all the exciting future possibilities. As if to emphatically announce this, the moon enters Leo and perfectly trines Mercury just before midday, right around the exact time Mercury enters Sagittarius, showing that our mood is flowing right along with this new mental optimism. Along with that, of course, expect a shift in the energy both when Mercury enters Sagittarius at 10:36 a.m. and when the moon enters Leo at 10:58 a.m. Later, the moon will also trine the sun, just adding to the fiery energy of this day. Mercury, representing our minds, is leaving the deep, intense, emotional, investigative, watery realms of Scorpio and entering the far-seeing eyes on the horizon, joys in the journey sign of Sagittarius. The moon, representing here mainly the general mood of the day, is leaving the watery, emotional, withdrawn, security-conscious realms of Cancer and entering the loud, powerful, fun, dramatic sign of Leo. So both the moon and Mercury are leaving emotional water signs and entering enthusiastic fire signs at almost the exact same time. Quite the shift in the energy indeed. To backtrack a bit, those who are up very early on this day may feel a dark mood pass over them from the late-night Moon-Pluto opposition referred to earlier. Sometimes things can get a little too intense when the moon opposes Pluto, but it is fortunate that with it being the moon, it doesn't last long, and on this day, as already mentioned, the energy becomes much more optimistic later on. Sometimes it really is darkest just before the dawn. On Thursday, November 25th, mental Mercury conjoins the South Node in Sagittarius Sagittarius, just as the Sun did 2 days ago. This is likely a repeat of the theme of fated events and loss or release from 2 days prior, only now with a more mental focus. Mercury is also travel, and with the 25th being, at least for those in the United States, the Thanksgiving holiday, it would be fair to say there is likely to be a lot of fateful travel, rendezvous, and get-togethers on this day, but also not just for those celebrating the holiday in the US, but for all countries of the world due to this astrological energy. On the other hand, the loss-oriented nature of the South Node may indicate that many may still choose to forego any get-togethers on this day due to the still ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, or even have virtual get-togethers with Mercury also ruling technology. The moon continues her journey through loud, loving Leo and ends up forming something of a grand cross with Mars, Saturn, and Uranus, as well as a trine to Chiron. Beginning early in the morning, the Moon-Saturn opposition is certainly rough and forces us to contend with stressful limitations, obstacles, or difficult realities. The trine to Chiron, however, indicates the potential for breakthroughs and healing, which I have a sneaking suspicion will continue throughout the day. Speaking of throughout the day, as the moon moves further into Leo and squares Uranus then Mars, the Grand Cross starts moving more and more into form. While theoretically the recent Mars-Saturn-Uranus chaos and insanity is activated by this moon, the stabilizing nature of the Grand Cross may help us to find balance in the midst of the dramatic madness. One thing is for sure. This is a very loud and powerful energy, and it does make for quite the dynamic day. On Friday, November 26th, we have austere Saturn forming a stabilizing sextile to wounded healer Chiron. This is a fairly rare and powerful development, where essentially stability is brought to the healing of wounds. While this does not automatically bring everything into perfect harmony, it really provides us a great opportunity to do some inner work, to take a situation that is not what we want it to be and find inner stability with it by focusing our thoughts in such a way as to soothe or heal ourselves about it. The configuration may also manifest as an event where an opportunity for healing just comes to us. Regardless of the nature of the opportunity, I advise remembering that when your desire is to heal something, feeling better emotionally is itself the fix. In addition to this, the moon continues her journey through Leo and opposes jolly Jupiter. Even though it is an opposition which involves a level of stress and tension, the opposition to Jupiter almost sounds to me like being confronted with solutions that we can choose to implement or not. It fits very well with what I just said about the Saturn-Chiron sextile on this day. Jupiter, remember, continues to be co-present with Saturn in Saturn's sign of Aquarius, at least for now, and while there, really wants to offer solutions to the Saturnian concerns, issues, and challenges. Furthermore, I would say there is a certain affinity between Jupiter with its desire to offer solutions and knowledge and Chiron with its desire to heal the wounds of itself and others. On Saturday, November 27th, the moon has moved into analytical Virgo, giving the day a somewhat more earthy and practical vibe. However, early in the day, the moon squares both the radiant sun and talkative Mercury, now both very close to a conjunction, indicating a dynamic, stressful situation that puts pressure on our ego, sense of self, conscious mind, communication, mental activity, or travel that likely causes some kind of sudden breakthrough later in the day when the moon trines rebellious Uranus and all that gathered stress is released. In other words, it indeed appears that the stress of the moon square the sun and Mercury early in the day is itself released later in the day through the trine to Uranus. Our mood, indicated by the moon, is fortunately helped somewhat by the moon being in a state of reception to Mercury as she squares it by being in Mercury's sign of Virgo. If someone tries to argue with you today, know that you may have more common ground than it at first appears. On Sunday, November 28th, we have the perfecting of a powerful Sun-Mercury conjunction in Sagittarius. This configuration lights up our minds and communication, energizing them. In my experience, it is often when something of significance manifests. Things like technological or communication breakthroughs are probable. With it taking place in Sagittarius, there is an optimistic, far-seeing, eyes-on-the-horizon quality to this development. However, the conjunction is also taking place in a smooth trine to wounded healer Chiron and a supportive sextile to stabilizing Saturn. This implies that this event is also connected to healing in some way, and it is given stability or structure through the sextile to Saturn. To put it plainly and simply, as an astrologer, this to me looks like the kind of configuration where things really tend to happen, where breakthroughs occur, where some kind of significant communication, mental activity, or travel takes place. The energy really flows. Meanwhile, the moon continues her journey through earthy Virgo and makes a trine to Venus, a sextile to Mars, an opposition to Neptune, and finally a trine to Pluto. So as the moon first trines Venus and sextiles Mars, there is highly creative, smooth-flowing energy. Venus and Mars are of course said to be the cosmic lovers, and here their already harmonious supportive sextile energy is further harmoniously locked into with and from the moon. It is nice, creative, easy energy. As the moon then opposes Neptune, we temporarily find ourselves in a more dreamy energy, in contrast to the earthy, analytical Virgo energy that the moon continues to move through. We are in a sense confronted with our own dreams and the desire to turn them into reality. Later, when the moon trines Pluto, there may be a certain depth we have by this later point in the day discovered that is also deeply satisfying in nature. Even someone who is completely new to astrology could look at the chart now on screen, know simply that the aspects in blue represent easy energy and those in red represent more difficult or challenging energy, notice that most of the aspects right now are blue, then without too much difficulty correctly conclude that, like I said earlier, the energy here really flows. I strongly advise using it as best you can. Use it, if possible, to make all your dreams come true. That concludes my astrology forecast for the week of November 22nd through the 28th, 2021. Remember, as always, that you have the ability to exercise creative control over any and all astrological energy through your ability to focus thought. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and thank you so much for watching.